Yeah, appearing that we have a forum, the meeting of the Waterfront Advisory Committee on October 21st will come to order. Stand, but please.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
About 5,000. My understanding is that a subcommittee of three consisting of Goliath, Bartholomew, and Sutton have prepared this draft survey for review today. And I have suggested to at least Josh Goliath that maybe the way to handle this would be in two pieces. First would be to discuss the substance of the survey questions. And then after that, to discuss the mechanism by which it will be distributed, how, to whom, and so forth, collected, and tabulated, and sorted, and reported. That sound like a good way to go? So why don't one of you three guys, again, walk us through the
I can do that. So what you guys have in front of you is a draft survey, and we have prepared 15 questions, the last one just being additional feedback. And this is in keeping with our previous conversation, where the three of us were charged with doing just that, taking some of the content of our previous discussion and trying to put that in a survey format that then would be distributed to residents. So we tried to keep this kind of simple to where we're trying to cover and get feedback regarding design, park usage, whether or not folks are satisfied with the park or what changes they would want to make. So the idea, was to have not so many questions that it was overdone, but also calculated enough to where we could determine who was using the park, what their impact was or is going to be throughout this process, and then how we could better accommodate and maybe build in something for downtown commerce or so. At any rate, this hopefully will just put our conversation in survey form. But if you want to go through it question by question and then talk about whether further refinement is needed, if so, how we could better structure the purpose and the individual questions, if that's okay. So yeah.
Want to take a picture of mine real quick? You have it on your phone? She got one.
So I'll just start at the top. The purpose: the City of Beaufort and the Waterfront Advisory Committee are seeking community input on potential improvements to the Henry C. Chambers Waterfront Park. Your feedback will help shape the design priorities for future enhancements to this important public space. And again, this was in keeping with the fact that we talked about this focus being more on the design priorities and less about the structural components of the park. First question: connection to Beaufort and the Waterfront Park. Which of the following best describes your connection to Beaufort and the Waterfront Park? This was to try to determine how many people that were filling out the survey at least were residents within the city. Do they live outside the city but in the Beaufort area? Are they property owners in the downtown area or the impacted area? Are they business owners in the downtown core area? Are they visitors or tourists? And then leaving a spot at the bottom there if there is any other that could be applicable. Second question: frequency of use. How often do you visit or use the Henry C. Chambers Waterfront Park? Daily, weekly, monthly, a few times a year, rarely, or never. These are moving on to the back page here. Question 3, age group. So please select your age group under 25, 25 to 44, 45 to 64, and 65 and older. Primary reasons for visiting. What are your primary reasons for visiting the park? We put select only 3 here to try to see if we could narrow down which of these more common reasons people would visit. So the options are dining and shopping, relaxation and waterfront views, walking or exercise, events or festivals, children's play areas, boating or marina access, and then the other on the bottom, if they wanted to specify another use for why they use the park. 5 and 6 are just open questions. What do you like most about the current park? And then number 6, what aspects of the current design could be improved? Those are open-ended to allow some flexibility and some creativity from the respondents. Question 7, park use and satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being very dissatisfied, 5 being very satisfied. How satisfied are you with the following? Overall layout and design, seating and shaded areas, green space and landscape, waterfront access and views, event space and infrastructure, accessibilities, in parentheses, wheelchairs, strollers, etc., cleanliness and maintenance, safety and lighting, bathroom facilities. Do you see, question 8, any safety issues with the current park design? If yes, please describe. This is one of those questions I think we might open up a can, but it's on there so we can further flesh that out on whether or not we want to keep it. It was the old one that really talked about safety issues and design, but I think it gets a little bit too into the structural components.
Might get a few collapses out there.
Right, yeah, might get a few classes, yeah. I want to take people off.
There's just big fence up there.
Right,
You could also get the homeless issue.
I think we do need, I mean, that.
Question 9, this one is specific about the day dock. How often do you use the day dock? Once a week, once a month, once a year, never. I think that information would be helpful for us just to understand what the usage is of the current facility as far as the day dock goes. Question 10, water access. Should access to the park by water, parentheses, boats, be a design priority in the future? Yes, no, I'm sure. Question 11, vessel docking. Do you believe that larger vessels such as shrimp boats, tour boats, or government vessels should be allowed to tie up along the seawall? Yes, no, unsure. Question 12, downtown business owners / property owners only. How does the park currently impact your business or property? And then B, what improvements could best support local commerce? Question 13, renovation priorities. Please rank the importance of the following possible improvements to the waterfront park on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest priority, 5 being the highest priority. Enhanced waterfront access, additional green space or gardens, improved playground or family-friendly areas, more seating and shaded areas, upgraded event, entertainment, infrastructure, stage lighting, etc. Art installations or cultural elements, eco-friendly, sustainable free features, fitness or recreational facilities, accessibility improvements, parking enhancements. Question 14, design and character. How important is it to you that the current park design remain largely the same? Very important, somewhat important, neutral, not important. And I think this gets to, our alternatives that were suggesting, one of them being, same size, same shape, whether it's a platform, seawall, but it just allows for us to kind of gauge, what the interest is in the community as far as park design, and if they're happy with what we currently have, or not. 15, just additional feedback. Please share any additional comments or suggestions that you have regarding the waterfront renovation. Just to kind of put a bow on it, if they have anything else that they would like to bring out that we didn't capture. But we felt like this was a good refinement of some of our past discussion. It hit on most of the boxes in regards to what we were looking to get back. So open for discussion if Got one way in?
First one is well done.
I think it's, yeah, extremely well done.
Thank you.
Good job.
So, 10 and 11, water access and vessel document. Trying to understand what we're trying to get at differently here. Water access, should there be a marina there? Should it be a day dock as opposed to 11? I think it's kind of the big question. Do we want cruise boats there? Do we want larger stuff? But what is 10 getting at?
Yeah, so 10 is getting at basically what we've heard is, an extension of the day dock over the front, on the face of the seawall there, which I think that there are obviously those in the community that would appreciate more water access, but I know for sure that there are those in the community that don't want to see that, and they feel like it would disrupt the view. And the reality is we have a couple of options because we do have some marina parking over there. We have a day dock on the other side. We have the day dock now on this side. So are we getting usage out of the current day dock as it is? And that's why the other question was here and important. How often do you use the day dock?
I said
So,
it with 10, whether should additional access to the water be the question, or whether the access period be a design feature.
You're talking about a larger boat ramp?
Yeah, so they basically should access, yes, this is kind of a yes or no, should the access be in the future or not in the future? But are we really asking, do you want more access in the future than just the current
It's a
data?
good question. We need two questions, because does that answer, does 10 really answer the question we're asking?
Yeah,
So, because we've heard, like I hear all the time that the day dock, and I believe it's true, was built too small to begin with, for how it's used, right? So, I mean, there's many days out the weekend, I can't get there.
Yeah.
Anyways, I always look through the binoculars before I can go downtown and see if I can even get to that dock, right? So that shows how much use it has. But I guess, we need to balance that against other recommendations, but I agree with some of the public comments earlier, personally, about, I don't think we need docks all across the front of the seawall, but.
I would just change it, should additional access to the park. It's really additional water,
so should additional access to the park be? Okay.
water access.
Yeah.
Because it's not saying yes or no to day dock, I think that's pretty much, that, I think people want that, it's really, we
I
need
think it's just
additional.
adding one word would help.
Yeah, do we need
So
additional?
should additional access to the park by water,
Yeah,
folks be designed? Okay, got it.
That's good.
Do we also want to consider including language or kind of preparatory language at the beginning that lets the person filling out the survey know that we're really just talking about a portion of the park that is not marina related? Because I feel like if they're thinking about both the marina and the park portion of it, they could get those a little bit mixed up when they're answering these boat access questions. And I think what we're doing with this is mostly just talking about park part. I could be wrong there, but if those are the answers we're looking for, just about the park part, it might be a good idea to include some language about that in the purpose statement. Just, we're not talking about the marina here, we're talking about the park.
Well, we're talking about the day dock, we're talking about the day dock on the east side.
Right.
But what about the day dock that's over on the west side, on the other side of the boat ramp?
That's
a
a marina, that's a marina asset and mooring
Oh,
field.
that's part of the, I thought that was a day dock.
It used to be.
Okay.
The history of that is the date that, we call it the dinghy dock now, but when the mooring field was developed, and the size of that and complexity of only one side you can moor to, it
Right.
never met the need for local boaters. In fact, you
Okay.
could get two boats tied and that's
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so it's not a day dock, it's associated with the marina.
But there's people who believe it is.
Okay,
And people still, there's not illegal for you to pull down and park it there if there's room.
right,
It's still public access,
Okay.
uncharged.
okay,
But I think that is a miscommunication often.
all right. Well, that's, I
Great
thought
question.
it was, yeah. And the other question I have is whether we want to address a larger boat ramp type access to the water. We only have the one, call it a one-lane boat ramp.
Yeah, but we can't,
Do we see any need to address that? Do we see any need to
I don't think
expand?
we can do anything about it even if we wanted to.
Okay,
That's one of those situations where we basically made that ramp obsolete except for events and probably emergency use because of the growth in downtown. Because
some
of it.
people launch out of there.
I used to all the time.
Your front tires in the water at a boat ramp.
Yeah, it's not a very functional ramp.
No.
we launch out of there with our kayaks, which makes it very, we could just call it a kayak ramp.
Well, that was one of the, you
I'd
know,
always go for
ironically,
that.
this is not, this conversation has been going on for years.
Okay.
And there were ideas and concepts about how to develop what it used to be, which was a beach for sailboats and canoes, and we didn't have any kayaks back then. But basically, it was a public access for the individual without the big boat and a truck and a trailer.
Right.
We erased that when we built the waterfront park. We basically put a seawall up, we put a narrow ramp, and then we brought in buses and tour buses and buggies, and we took all the marina parking. So now you really can't go down there with a truck and trailer and expect to find a place to park. So why go down there? You know, it's just, we got Ladies Island ramp, that's the
So
nearest.
now we think of it as an emergency entrance. to the
I
water,
do.
Yeah.
I treat it as one that the festivals use, that the police and the local people notice theirs on the fire department's
Sure.
vision screen.
Okay,
If we have a downtown emergency, we need that access to the water.
and you have to have it. Okay, got
But
it.
I love the idea of more, but I don't think there's,
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
Just to incorporate Ben's comment though, maybe we add 2 words to number 10, should, additional daily access to the park. Be a priority, just so we're not talking about the marina here.
So let me ask
Number 10,
this.
yeah, should additional daily access.
Ben, when you made your statement, was your statement taking question 10, or was there another question that you felt brought the marina into the scope of what we're discussing here?
I just think it would be best to have people thinking about the park side only, because I think, and just get that out of the way up front. Because if you're getting questions like that, you're gonna be having some answers about, well, I don't wanna see the marina expand, if that's what you're talking about. Just kind of get that out of people's minds. like that.
circle no, thinking it's gonna be an expansion.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I would say too, though,
That's why I thought daily access would make it where the data are.
and I've made this clear, I'm not opposed to, and I actually think it would probably be more beneficial for us to roll the 2 projects into one, the marina and the park. So if we were to intentionally, with the verbiage, specify that this was only for the waterfront park, if we decided down the road to try to go after funding for both the marina and the park together, how would that then play into this initiative that now has clearly separated this survey from the marina altogether?
How do you just reissue a survey?
So reissue another survey?
And you could put the words at the top, interchange waterfront park survey, not related to marina, or some words similar.
And if you wanted to do them together, you could have just a portion of it that's related to the park and then a portion of it that's related to the marina.
But make sure it's very clear that this
The
portion of the
following
survey.
questions are related to the park,
Yeah.
the following questions are related to the
Yeah.
marina.
Another good thought.
Question, number 4, primary reasons for visiting. Is there any value added to asking them to prioritize those?
Well,
I'm not saying there is, I'm just poking out the discussion.
the thought was, what are your primary reasons for visiting the park? If they go there to dine, shop, relax, walk, exercise, events and festivals, you might just get them checking every single box. But if you could try to narrow down, like, what are the top 3 reasons for why you go down there? Then, maybe that helps narrow.
I get what you're saying with the ranking system, one through.
Oh, you're saying, should we change it up and make it do like? label it
One through 7.
Right,
Well, you could just
Oh.
put on there, rank your top 3 reasons for visiting the park,
Right.
period, in the verbiage. So rank them, in other words, so like,
And select 3.
yeah, you could circle
Who are your 1, 2, and 3?
1, 2, and
Or
3.
what are your 1, 2, and 3?
I don't know how to write that on a circle.
I think if you're gonna get them to ranking, you might as well have them rank them 1 through 7.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people might go, well, I dine and shop and I really like to go have the waterfront views and I do walk and exercise, but oh, by the way,
I think it's a good suggestion, because
I
it
go to
still
festival
gives
too,
you,
yeah.
it still gives you
Yeah.
the ability to see what their priority
So rank them
reason
all,
is.
not just 3.
But
Right,
then, yeah, okay, so we'll
Rank
restructure that to be the primary reasons for visiting the park, rank, yeah, rank. Okay,
And I actually had the same question for 13, but I don't know if it makes a difference just for data tabulation.
renovation, priorities.
You could do it the same way.
you mean instead of lowest,
Yeah, just do the same one through however many that is,
Gotcha.
rather than,
Yeah,
but
I think it's easier to mine the data that way.
that's the only thing that I had for it, was pulling that together.
Yeah.
Other than that,
I do have one other question on number 9, throw this out there. How often do you use the data? Should we ask for how they use the data? Or do they just go and hang out and enjoy the sunset and let their legs dangle off the pier, whether they dock their boat or? That, or do we just assume that if they use the data, they're talking about tying their boat up to it?
I was,
Are there walking, I'm gonna call them pedestrians out on the day dock?
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah,
yeah.
I usually see boats.
So is that the thought is
But I
that
never-
actually this way may be people who are not tying up to the day dock, but
Right.
walking down there, they're
Right.
using it to sit on or whatever.
And that's why I asked the
Not necessarily-
question, if you're trying to get a who docks their
Yeah.
boat there, I think maybe we should be very explicit with that question.
Okay,
So the
Or
question
either
that,
that or get them to say, well, how do you use the data?
right.
You know, are you throwing crab nets over and crabbing, or you?
well, basically you drive it back down to how often do you moor your vessel, your boat to the day dock? As opposed to how often you use the day dock.
So that addresses the boaters, and then you want another question to address, I'm calling them pedestrians.
I don't think so. I think we could probably get away with just a better understanding of who ties off, how many people tie off to the day dock.
so I think that's really the concern we're trying to
Yeah.
capture.
So I think what
How
you
often
just
do you moor
suggested, yeah,
your vessel
yeah.
So,
to the day dock?
so that question was intended to capture both.
Boaters.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Boaters, yeah. And you know, unless you take a boat ride around Beaufort County, you will not even consider how many boats are tied to docks in our region. I mean, we are tip of the iceberg, the users downtown. There's so many more boats here than you can
Oh,
imagine.
yeah.
So question 9, how do you moor your vessel? We added additional to 10, back to yours, David, on 13. Said structure it kind of the same 1 through, I can't remember, 10.
And that's the thing, I don't know if it may be easier to tabulate, but I don't know if it really captures everything, because there's,
I don't think it does, yeah.
and that's why I didn't say that, I think that's.
I think we have to restructure that entire question. We could do it, but, I don't know with the way that it's.
I think
laid out.
I think we leave it alone, I just want to throw it out there. But-
A question on eco-friendly, sustainable features. What were you thinking of by that? What's that mean?
Well, I think it's just the consideration of green infrastructure as we're laying this out. I mean, obviously something that we're probably going to be pretty heavily considering anyway, but any improvements that we could make that were eco-friendly.
But you have additional green space and gardens.
Yep.
Up number 2.
Yep.
And then this phrase down here, and I just, again, that it seems nebulous to me.
Okay.
I know when I hear eco-friendly sustainable features, I personally go to building materials and then also the design itself. Do we backfill? If I can see people go on the critical line, is where it is. We don't need to backfill. We need to protect what's there. You know, that's where my mind goes with it, but.
And mine goes more to, what we plant, is it sustainable? Type of plants we use, are they sustainable? But I don't think a lot of people think that, right? Because here's the problem. At one time when the park was first built, we started going through this whole conversation about what level we want our parks, because we had 28 parks at the time, and we had to discuss where our priorities were in the city. So we ranked them A, B, and C parks, with A being the highest quality, meaning it had the most dress up. And we were spending a lot of money on plants, on annuals and perennials, right? So it was not eco-friendly to be putting out things that died in 3 months, right, in my mind. So I asked them to look, let's think about more native plants, let's think about things that can be naturally grown with the type of weather we have, and not keep spending money on to beautify them kind of unnaturally.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And the other question I have in respect to parking enhancements. Do we want to include something in there about entry and exit, the routing through the parking lot, as which would be on the marina, but do we want to address that, have people address that? Better access, and
Like what the specifics on how we would
how would you
make the
circulate?
parking enhancements?
Yeah, circulate through.
I mean, anybody can say, yeah, I'd like to see parking enhancements and rank high, but I think most people would say we'd like to see more parking. Now, is that realistic?
Right.
Right? I mean, is it really, everybody knows, I mean, you get two sides of the story. We don't need more parking, we need more parking. Well, then we also know there's a big group in the past that used to want to see the park continue to be more green space, but it displaced parking, but yet they didn't want to see a parking structure. So there's a big, that's a
Well, I
tough.
appreciate the parking, but I was just wanted to include the layout of the parking, how we exit enter the park and exit the park, bringing the buses in. You know,
That's
they would bring the Greyhound buses in there and how, I mean, these, you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
big buses, and how do we get them in and how do we get them out? Sometimes, as I've seen, as many as 5 buses in there on a good day. And that's taking up a lot of parking spaces, but also it's the traversing of the parking area, how they get in, how they get out. And it is a bottleneck in there.
So if they rank parking enhancement, just a generic term like that, what would a committee or a council or a designer think of that answer? Let's say parking enhancement was the number one answer to that group. What would that mean to somebody having to make a decision?
I would hope, and maybe this doesn't happen, I would hope that they would check that as their number one priority, if that's what it was, and then provide additional feedback in question 15 as to what their issue was and what they felt like the solution could be.
Well, you can put a little note up here at the top that says, you know, expand on your comment or add additional information on the final sheet. So you could just put a little parentheses or bracket up there, so they have notes or, you know, please feel free to comment additional, because you'll get some information from people and you won't get the fine detail. But
You know, I think this is a 30,000 foot view. Try to capture, you know, kind of shake the narrative.
yeah, we can't get down in the weeds to write this, so.
Right. Now, at number 8, you have, do you see any safety issues with the current park design? Should we, is there a way of putting into that sentence or that question rather, suggested safety issues to think about?
Or reverse the question. Do you see any improvements in safety that can be made?
And
We
then,
have,
if you then go, if yes, and then like that, if yes, please express, I can do that, when I'm filling it in, yeah. I like the way you put that.
But we say if 7, you have any concerns, safety and lighting. Then I guess 8 could be, if you reverse the question, probably a good segue from that.
so the question 6 is what aspects of the current design could be improved. I think that basically captures what the language is that we just discussed in 8.
I think it'll work both ways.
I do like having 8 though. I think it kind of brings it right out, you know, kind of say what it is.
So maybe we should expand on it, or just let the person reading it expand on it.
We've got- There's 3 spots to answer that right now. One is, 2 of them can be written out, and one of them is just a statement. Do you believe safety and lighting is a concern? So if you answered number 7 and you put safety and lighting as a high priority, you have another opportunity at 6 to expand on that, and you actually have another opportunity on 8 to expand on that.
Sure.
Like you said, it's 30,000 feet.
Well, we're in a, with 8,
Yeah,
but Mike's suggestion of, dispersing the approach to that was good. There are several references to safety. You could end up with a exhaustive survey saying, my God, what a safety mess that park is. There's so many opportunities to comment on it, but, what if I like Mike's way of replacing 8. What if in 7, instead of standard environmental excellence, or instead of saying safety, like you just make it like.
About safety down.
And then safety meeting, number 8.
And that gives them a block to address it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. They can put it in their heart.
And the only thing I had, I don't think we talked, is number 1 question. Says which of the following best describes your connection to Waterfront Park? I can see a little bit of confusion. If you meet 2 or 3 of those criteria. So would you be able to, I mean, I don't say we have to change it, but I want you to look at it that way. So if you're a resident of City of Beaufort, you own property and a business down there, which one would you select? And how important is that data to us?
I think that's where the other can come into play.
Or
Or
you
if there's
can
a combination they could put. I'm a
check all that
business
apply.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you have 2 or more of these, do you just check all that apply to you?
We could put a little check all that apply at the side.
There you go.
Yeah.
Number 1.
So to go back to the Ben's comment about how to separate the marina, do you think we ought to put language at the header of this or in some intro to the survey that says not related to the marina? Is that what we?
Yeah, I think it needs to be up front.
I think we have to be upfront about
Or do we want to have a separate part of the survey that addresses the marina separately?
Could do that, but what would you do with that data right now?
I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what kind of can of worm that opens up, but what kind of questions, if, just say we're having the issues we're having with the park or the marina, but we're having a public conversation about the marina. What would you be asking your citizenry about the marina? You know you want to maintain it, so yeah, we want a maintainable marina, we want an accessible marina, we want to, the biggest thing we know already politically is most folks don't want an expanded marina.
Right.
So what information will we get out of a survey about the marina?
what isn't that information premature until we resolve the whole lease issue?
I don't think so, because it's still a city asset and it's, regardless of anything that happens, the city still has to do something with it. And we need the data. I think we need any data we can get that reflects a general census about the data, because you see how divided it is when you have a conversation about the marina. It's just like,
What questions will we ask? What do you have in mind?
I'd have to think about it now that I'm thinking about it from a separated,
Yeah.
a separated survey.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just trying to figure out what we're.
Well, the next meeting, we're going to be getting into the question of public benefits, of public access, utilization benefits.
I personally think we do it separate, so.
I was just, if you wanted to wade into this, I had a note here for this meeting, it says, a question could test the respondents' views about the public benefit of the marina today. General question, what things could be changed about the marina to make it accessibility to the public better, more public benefits.
I think that would be helpful information to get.
Can't wade too deeply into this water right now.
Right.
But we can certainly.
I think we're on firmer territory to have a survey about rehab when we declare litigation. I think there's some value in having a survey about it. I don't know that now's the time.
My fear, I guess, is I would not want, because in my mind, it still makes sense for us to do this all as one. And I know that maybe the appetite's not there right now. But in the event that is a feasible option, I think that probably would be our best. And I don't want litigation to be the wall that keeps us from doing that. I know that it's there and that it exists, but I don't want us to say, well, I don't want to go after getting information as far as a consensus of our constituency goes, because we have litigation on this issue. If there was no litigation on the table and we still said at this time, I don't think it makes sense to get information regarding the marina, then that would be a separate conversation. I just wouldn't want the litigation to be what was in the way if we felt like it was prudent to get feedback and then consider rolling them together.
I think regardless of whether you're holding off because of litigation or not, I think 2 separate surveys is probably a good idea. I think 15, this size survey is very good for actually getting people engaged and not getting them tired of doing it by the time they're done with it. I think they'll be able to kind of breeze through this and give meaningful answers without getting fatigued. So if we do it, I think it's still a good idea to separate them out some. A little time.
I agree with you, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's, if you're gonna, you have a question or two on the marina, you can say, you know, do you want it larger? Do you want it the same size? Do you want more daily access? That type of thing. But I think this is not the place to get into, you know, much more complex, you know, management questions on it. All right. Ownership, management. So it's gonna be anything that's going to be more kind of the low hanging fruit type of questions.
So Josh, do you think that any decision you make as a council member or the council related to the funding and repairs of the park should be tied to, you're saying you publicly, you think it should be tied, but should we ask that as a public question? Or was that something that you feel strong enough about to lead council to go after the funding anyways for the marina within the scope of, you know, I'm talking in the future as we unfold way to repair the park? Wouldn't it already be natural? It's a city asset, it's part of the Waterfront Park and its connection, not necessarily in its description and funding from the beginning, right? It seemed like it'd be a common thing you'd do anyways, without having to weigh the public in on decision, because I don't think they can make that decision.
Yeah, the decision itself in regards to if we do it all at the same time, or if we separate and do the park and then worry about the marina later.
I mean, what if you got a survey back and everybody said, no, 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 it was 100% no, we don't want to do anything to do with the marina?
Yeah.
What does that help you? How does it help the city asset?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Yeah, I think that's what we should be doing, and so if we publicly have that discussion is what you're saying, and council discuss if we're going to do this as one, or if we're gonna keep it separate and go after funding for the park and not necessarily the marina, fine, maybe it doesn't provide value to have questions on here pertaining to marina. I guess my next question to Scott would be, if we did 2 surveys, and this one was primarily just focused on Waterfront Park, and then we came back and did another survey, do we have it within our means to keep the data some way, the email or whatever from the respondents that took this, and then when we send out the marina survey, not only to everybody, but also ensuring that we, reach back out to those that filled this survey out in hopes to get more engagement even than what this survey did. I wouldn't want to lose traction, you know what I mean? So if we had people engage in this, they took a survey, I would like to know that we were at least reaching that same amount or more the second time we put out a survey to get information on the marina.
Yeah, I think we use identical models for
Okay.
reaching out when we do both surveys. I think that's important to be consistent. Be sure we are providing at least the same opportunity to the same people to respond. I do think there's a lot of value in having a survey about the marina, by the way, because I know you hit it, Mike. I mean, there's all kinds of opinions out there. Marinas can be bigger, the marina should stay the same size, there shouldn't be a marina, it should be free, all kinds of opinions out there. But we don't know really what the masses think about the size, and we know what a few people think who live on Bay Street. They think the marina should not be any larger, it needs to stay the same footprint, and they have been the loudest and they have gotten the most attention. But we don't know what the other 14,000 residents of the city of Beaufort think. And so I think it's important to do a survey to find out your marina, your city, what are your thoughts on it? So I think there's some value to having a survey about the marina.
There is a possibility that even respondents to this could be asking questions. Hey, you're talking about the Waterfront Park, what about the marina? They might throw in some
additional points about the marina.
They might anyway, in the,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, the additional,
The questions about parking, I'm gonna potentially dragging comments out.
How about, is there a need to capture the who? I know with typical surveys, you don't answer who you are, it's just anonymous, you just answer and send it back, we don't really know who it is that's answering. I don't think we need to know that, but do we give the option? And if we did collect that data, how would we use it? Meaning if Mike Sutton filled this out and there's a comment there that said, would you like updates on XYZ related to this event? Sign up here and your name will be added to a distribution list of information. That's only valuable though if somebody actually collates the information and gets it out.
Well, there's goodness in that also because we may run across a response that we want to know a little bit more about what they're thinking, right? Like it might be a really good response, but we want to explore it a little further and give members of the committee an opportunity to engage with that person. So I think there's some value in having someone have the ability to leave their name and contact information.
So I just don't know how surveys work, to know if you can put that data in there. So when you find the survey and you go blank, it says, you know, put the words in it, give you the information you need. Who are they? Do you want to be contacted?
Yeah, you could have a question that speaks to identity and that it being optional and that the survey counts just as much as they leave their name around. What do you think?
Well, yeah, no, I think that's exactly what I was saying previously is if there was something that, sure, they could fill out the information and then we have, know who it is. But also if the question could be, are you interested in receiving additional surveys about this topic or additional surveys pushed out by the city or something? Because if we know that we're going to potentially have another survey that captures this same audience's desire to weigh in, then it could be valuable to know whether or not they want that. And then if we could, make it easy on ourselves by already having that queue of information, whether it's email addresses or contact information, to know that the individuals that weighed in here are gonna know about an initial survey that we have out, So that's kind of exactly what I was saying.
You could even ask if they would be willing or willing to participate in a focus group as well. If you want to have a group that you can interact with as a committee. So that may be
Yeah,
another good data point for you to have.
I guess how are you pushing it out? I heard Survey Monkey, I think was one of them, or what other?
Second subject.
Well, that's a tool.
Let's,
Right.
let's wrap up the,
Every ability.
why don't we see if we can wrap up this first and then we get.
I'm done with all my comments.
On number 11, I'm a little concerned that that's pretty limited answers to could be a fairly complicated question. Because I think you're probably going to get lots and lots of notice of that, but I think there are probably a lot of people who like to see shrimp boats during water festival. There might be people who would be in favor of cruises if you're just limiting them to down closer to the marina and you're not having them stacked so the entire view is blocked. I don't really know how you limit that, but I worry that you get a lot of no's and that could affect ours or council's decision.
so
We've got some other options other than just yes or no.
I think that's a good question, Ben. And maybe we elaborate on that a little bit. I guess my thinking on this particular question is this gives us a pulse on the current community, or at least those who take the time to fill out the survey in regards to whether or not they favor boats tying up to the seawall or not, larger boats. But I also feel like this body and council needs to prepare for the future and understand that the constituents today are not the constituents of tomorrow. And so if we can feasibly fund the additional structural integrity needed to have boats tie off to the seawall, even if the appetite today on this question is no, and it's in the community a resounding no, we don't want to see that, that's fine, and that's good, and they don't have to. But if 15 years down the road or 20 years down the road, things change and the community wants to have boats tie up, they won't have to add anything to the structural integrity or the components to be able to do that. We would have already planned for that in our design and in our build today. And then that could be something they could, factor into their operations down the road. That's my thought. This gives us a pulse on how people feel about shrimp boats and larger vessels tying up to the seawall, but it's not necessarily going to be, something that steers the decision on whether or not we add that integrity into the design, so long as it's financially feasible.
I agree with Ben in that most people are gonna go through there and, not gonna look at this and say, oh, awesome, let's have these huge boats tying up there all the time. Probably get a large number of no's, but I think we do have to ask people, what do you think about this? Because people have opinions, and some very vocal opinions on whether we should have cruise ships tying up there, larger vessels. So I think we have to ask the question.
How about instead of a yes, no question, ask, would you be willing to allow and make a list and let them check shrimp boats, tour boats, add the cruise ship to it, so on and so forth, versus a yes, no answer? Check what type of vessels you would be willing to tie up down there.
Or you could change the title, just limited vessel docking, and then change the verbiage to say, you believe that limited larger vessels such as these type boats should be able to tie up. It opens the door for, you're not saying you're designing as a permanent. Because that's how the park was always designed. It was designed for limited access, but it was never meant for permanent moorings. Because that we don't have water, we don't have sewer.
Right, that's something we're considering in this work, whether or not we want to do that sometime. I like the idea of a list.
I like the list idea too.
And call it limit vessel docking. I'd rather see that than.
Would that be a priority listing? Like the same language or?
Prioritize the types of boats you would see.
I wouldn't, because people are gonna always.
Check what you allow.
Yeah,
There you go.
more than one.
But I think if you say limited, I mean, if you look at this question and say, they're gonna tie up there all the time, everyone's gonna say, no, thanks, but limited, can you live with it? You might get a little, less strong pushback on all these, vessels.
I've got a,
Limited word list them.
I think when I think of these vessels, I think there are cruise ships and there's everything else. Cruise ships are not mentioned by that terminology. I don't think people think of a tour boat as being a large cruise vessel. I would use the term cruise vessel, cruise ship.
I don't think on the list,
And the shrimp boats are there usually just at the shrimp festival or the waterfront.
The only regular boat, semi-regular boats coming in are the cruise ships. That's really what we're talking about.
That's this time in history, though. You gotta remember, there was another time when we did have shrimp boats tied more regularly there, not just festivals. You remember, we erased an entire waterfront park to build a wharf system. There was a working wharf system, maybe not real active, but it was still privately owned docks for moorings, and people leased spaces to fishing boats. And that was erased when the park was built. So we took a very important part of our history and erased it simply because of a new park design. They didn't complete it, they didn't intend to. They did a relieving platform and added cleats to the waterfront. I think with the assumption, and I'm just guessing, don't know the fact, that they expected boats to continue to tie up there. I don't think they were trying to erase the history. I think it's just a matter of, and now we're asking the question. I don't think shrimp boats will be around 20 more years, which is sad, but the other thing we miss is that the Coast Guard, Army Corps of Engineers, and other federal agencies travel to ICW, and they do stop at the waterfront park. And that's why I put in here the government vessels, is because if we take that ability away, it's gone forever.
Right.
It's just like.
I think we have to include cruise ships. And limited docking,
Yeah, I think,
and then let them check off, like you were suggesting.
All the other vessels that we've talked about are irregular docking.
right.
The cruise ship would be regular docking.
And that's only season too. It's not 12 months out of the year.
That's a long season.
You think you consider it a long season? Yeah.
I do.
All right.
There's another aspect of this too, and this particular question. There's an aesthetic feature and there's a cost feature. Some people object to these boats, large vessels, cruise ships, could be if they objected because the view of the water is being blocked. But going forward, this is an aesthetic issue for us and council. It's an aesthetic issue and a cost issue. That might be a little bit too much to build into a question. But I mean, really the question is, do you think we ought to spend more money to accommodate these folks?
Right, and so going back to McSweeney's comment a couple meetings ago when they said the difference could be 5 or 10% of project cost, right? So depending on what the difference is when they present those options to us is where I think my decision will be founded is if it's 5% difference to build it to accommodate the ships for the future, I would say, yeah, that makes sense. If it's a 50% difference, then it doesn't make sense. It's too much money because it's perhaps something that people don't want today, and we would be spending a lot more money for trying to plan for what somebody might want 20 years from now. But I think that if it's feasible, and I believe that's what McSweeney is going to, part of what they're going to present to us is the difference in pricing versus can it accommodate larger ships or no?
So early on in the process, American Cruise Lines indicated that they would be willing to financially contribute to a solution that would allow them to continue to dock their cruise ships at Waterfront Park. No dollar amounts were discussed because we don't know what this project's going to look like. And not that should sway the decision one way or the other, when I throw that out as a data point in this group. Ultimately, the decision is whether we want to be able to accommodate those ships, whether it's today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now. Like Mike said, if we don't build it in now, maybe it's gone forever and we'll get the opportunity again. So, I think I shared that information with you all already.
Just remember too, that the financing for everything we've done down there to date, including the Land and Water Conservation Fund, is directed to waterfront recreation. The Land and Water Conservation Fund to build the park is related to recreation, including water access. The Day Dock is a marina grant that was given to us for public access to water to the park from water, place to stop. And the marina expansion from the past and repairs, all been money. It's been done based on the public's ability to get access to land by water. So you can't just say we're building a park, we don't want boats, in my mind.
But I think, should we say, do you think the park should be designed to accommodate on a limited basis these vessels? Because it really does come down to, we're doing this whole thing, should it be designed? Because it may change, probably won't change what the look is, but should it be designed to accommodate these larger vessels? But so I do think it's two different questions. It's, does it have the capability to take these vessels in, as Josh said, for the next 90 years? Or does council says yay or nay on letting them dock up there? I think it's two different questions. So it's really, since we're talking about the design of the park now, should the park be designed to, to accommodate it? And maybe it's getting the same answer, but that's really what we're talking about here.
So I think that fits in well with the suggested change of the list. So should the design accommodate and then
Now we're in the future.
break down
Now
the
we're in
list,
the
check all that apply.
Yeah, I would say, should it be designed to accommodate now or in the future on a limited basis? Cruise ships, blah, blah, blah. So, it's, the question is not, is it gonna happen now? Again, it's up to me for council to decide whether the cruise ships go there in 3 years and this thing's done or not. So.
Yeah, I just think it's prudent on us if we're gonna be building something for the next 50 or 70 years to consider the fact that we're not gonna be at the table, we're not gonna be the ones living here. And so that appetite may change, and if it makes sense for us to plan for that, then we do the best that we can.
I think when we say now or in the future, it doesn't give the impression that we're making this decision now on cruise ships. It's just really, should it be designed to accommodate them now or 40 years?
Right.
So.
There's a lot of ways to write that one. I like the list idea, but I think the current design was designed to allow boats. I kind of to let the public believe that that never wasn't the case. So it's like the question really should be something like, should the current design that allows larger vessels to moor alongside the seawall be considered into future repairs? So, because it's a relieving platform. That's the impetus is whether it's a relieving platform or not, that's a huge cost in engineering related to design. But the public, I don't think quite understands that the park was built with a relieving platform for that very reason. And so I think they just want park. They don't understand that the dynamics of those boats, whether they like them or not. You build it one way, you'll never see them again. You do it another way, you might. I don't know. I can't help it. I think we burned this one up, but the list, I think we come back and see what that looks like.
Okay. Maybe instructional language, add the list, and then do that.
See what it looks like.
So
Are you taking a little cookie
I
thing, right?
am, and I know that Tracy is too, so I've got to check all that apply for the first question there. I got primary reasons on number 4 being ranked structure opposed to select 3. Scratch safety from the park use and satisfaction question 7, just to include lighting, which provides a block of block for question 8, which is going to focus more on the safety issues. Question 9, how often do you moor your vessel? More or less, so that'd be kind of the wording, but trying to separate those who actually tie off to the day dock. Question 10, I added should additional access to the park by water. And then 11, we just talked about, so something to the extent of should the design accommodate, and then break out a list of the vessels, check all that applies.
I've got 2 things.
Okay.
One is in question 6. I thought it might be better since we're not really inviting comments here on the engineering design of the park. What if we just said, what aspects of the current park instead of design?
We have enough designers.
So it would be in keeping with the language in question 5, because we have, what do you like most about the current park there? I don't think that's a
Okay.
fair change.
The other comment, this is the potential relationship in the eye of the reader between question 10 and question partnership, 11, 11. Should access part by boats be a design priority, and then question 11 is what if we said in question 10, because I think this is what you're saying. Should additional daily access to the park by personal water boats be a design priority? Distinguishing between personal water boats in 10 and larger vessels.
Watercraft or anything, yeah.
Okay, so basically between the 2 questions, charge would be to differentiate larger vessels from smaller vessels. Got it.
Pretty much 10 would be commercial, or
Personal boat.
11 would be commercial.
Additional daily access to the park by personal watercraft be a design priority in the future.
I think it's also important to not say personal watercraft, because I think that brings to mind something else.
That's a very good point.
Personal / private boat or something like that.
Yeah.
That we don't want people thinking it's about jet skis.
Yep.
I'll look at options for how we can differentiate
Very fair
from
point.
larger vessel and smaller vessel, but not use personal
Yeah.
watercraft.
Yeah, tax record says watercraft, that's all it says.
I'll run it by legal.
It doesn't say personal.
Well, that conclude all comments from the community?
I think this is really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good job, well done, guys.
I do too.
That concludes the comments on the survey itself. Maybe we should now talk about how this is going to get done, distributed, covered, collated. Who's it gonna go to? You may have all the answers.
Who's a survey expert in here?
We have a PIO staff that can manage that. We're likely to use Survey Monkey as the instrument that we use, but the key is on how you get the information out to let people know what's available. And to push the survey to them, we'll do that through all of our communication means that we normally just get meeting information out. Additional things, we can also go so far as to see if we can get some sponsorships from radio stations to get the word out that way that they can provide. We'll use all available means to get the word out. The question is, how long do you want the survey to run? We need to figure that part out.
Question for you on distributing a survey. Is it too late in the game to add this to our newsletter?
No, that's why I asked the question, how long do you want a survey to be out for? So we can add that to the newsletter that gets delivered to every address instead.
Okay. Yeah, because I think it's a perfect time.
So we can put a,
QR code or something in there. that we
some
can
way to
do the
connect
survey.
them to the survey on the
Yeah.
newsletter, right? Not fill it out on the newsletter.
No,
No.
What's the typical timeline of these things?
I think the one we sent out in the fall comes out in November is.
Oh, I meant for normal surveys that go out. I mean, 30 days, 6 days, 90 days, like what window are we
is
looking at?
is there a rush on getting it back?
Well, that's why I asked, when do we want the data?
Well, we're going to be expecting go to a charrette in the first quarter.
Right.
Now, I don't know whether that's January 1 or March 31.
But this can run simultaneous.
But
Like they
what I
have
said
to,
is,
though.
we're gonna collect information from that charrette and we're gonna collect information from this
Right.
and move forward. So I would say that we want to be harvesting this data this year if we could.
I'd see this data as valuable for the charrette because
Yeah.
you need to be able to put the graphics up. It says,
Yeah.
you know, when you walk in a room and you might have some maps or some static display and you see, you know, recent survey, here's the data, and it kind of drives the conversation.
What about if we said we'd like to see the results of the survey in our January meeting? That gives us enough time and it gives it the information
We
before.
have to analyze the information. If we're gonna analyze it in January,
Right, that's what I'm saying. So if
and
we,
then the charrette is.
and then the charrette would be probably what? March, April?
I'm a chairman, so what did you say you wanted to do the shred, Chair?
I was thinking sometime in the first quarter of next year. That's gonna all be driven by when Sweeney delivers his delivery.
Right.
And I tried to pin them down the other day and they were unpinnable.
No,
So best I could do was to get him to say sometime in the first quarter of next year. And I did say that we, as this committee, would want to review their materials before we went.
When does the newsletter go out?
And I think the November timeframe.
Well, that's what I was thinking. If it goes out in November timeframe, you at least want a couple of weeks after they get it for people to take it. So that's what I was thinking. If we harvest it beginning of the year, then it gives, if it goes out middle of November, then it gives them November and December. And then we can close it off, say December 31st. And
A project like this, I would almost say leave it over for at least 60 days.
I would keep thinking.
Yeah, because you want the word to get out, right? By the time somebody gets the word of mouth, because they didn't get it through any other means, the survey may be closed.
so then we would potentially see it in our February.
By the time we tabulated the data, yeah.
Which would still probably work for,
If they're just saying first quarter and they're not committing to January, then
I
I think we're good. I think they're already in March, but
I have an idea that first quarter is maybe gonna be late first quarter.
but that's a lot of information to have to analyze. We're talking about analyzing the report from from the survey and then analyzing McSweeney's presentations at the same time. And we've then come up with information that we're gonna present to Charette. And so those two things seem to be just coming together. The survey and McSweeney's work, it looks like it's coming together or something.
Well,
I think that's okay.
that's
You think
okay.
that's okay?
Yeah, I think that's.
That's okay unless there's something is gonna result from the survey that we would want McSweeney to have before they finish. I haven't gone back to it, that thought in mind.
Well, McSweeney to do their work, they have the specific options that we want.
Yeah.
They have what they need to do that.
They're focusing on the
So to Mike's point, to be able to have some of this data tabulated, if not all of it, if the survey's closed and we've got it tabulated, we've got the results. To share those at the charrette, it might help, like you said, it might help guide the discussion. So I think them coming together at the same time is not such a bad idea.
All right.
So,
So how soon can the survey get out?
well, if we get it finalized, we're in the last part of October, we can get it out by mid-November. We can close it mid-January.
That's fine, plenty of time.
That gives time for I think the newsletters got November open, I remember that incorrectly. But that gives us time, that gives it time for those to be mailed out. They can see the QR code, gives them time to respond to it, because they're also talking about the holiday time when people are distracted. Anytime.
Yeah, we got Christmas break, New Year's, I mean, there's all this stuff coming up.
So I'd hate to limit it to 30 days during that time, especially.
Then we'll add it to our website, so it'll be up
Yeah,
there.
it'll be
on our
everywhere.
channel, we'll have it on Facebook, we'll have it
It'll
on.
council discussions, and I'll bring it up in council for us as well.
It has to get to the press too,
Yeah.
People grab you on the news.
So I think expediting the survey is the key component, and then keeping it out there in conjunction with the city newsletter. Those are the two bullet points that have to mesh. So you get the survey ready to go out, or the newsletter ability to announce it. Those are very important. And then the closing date has to be determined based on charrette potential date.
Yeah.
So if it's March,
I think January is probably safe. Yeah.
Scott, can you explain for those of us who aren't that familiar with SurveyMonkey, how that works?
Well, it is web-based. It is a survey that you are allowed to design and tailor to fit your needs. So we can tailor it any way we would like to with regard to the questions and how we work these out. We can set the amount of time that we leave it open for people to respond, and then we gather the results, we tabulate them. We can even run them through AI and synthesize them and see what the main points are that come across.
a very easy program.
So could anyone, access this,
They could,
anyone,
and that,
regardless of where they
and that's the
live?
negative side, you don't have a control on it, and we see that with a lot of surveys that we put out, we get some really ridiculous responses. And the responses that you can write freely in, we sometimes see 14 and 15 surveys or more that have the exact same, so. You also open yourself up to the ability for electronic bots to have like a survey.
How do you guard against that?
Well, if you can't guard against it, you can just take it into consideration when you analyze the data and call it out for what it is. So,
Can you ask like a zip code location? Not that that's gonna help somebody repeat it, but could you put a question there about, I mean, we already talked about one of them, I think, what did it say,
Your location, where you're from.
Quick question one.
Yeah.
question one,
Yeah.
resident city, but, yeah.
yeah, we kind of do it there. So, I mean, it's all on our system. You could plug in whatever zip code you wanted to.
There's no like, are you a robot check or no?
Well, we could check it.
You could,
Yeah.
yeah, no, you could.
I don't know if that's a feature you can use in SurveyMonkey, but if it is, we can certainly institute it.
There's always gonna be outliers, so I think key here is you're gonna have to look at the data subjectively and go, look, it's obvious like that don't make any sense, but I think you can glean enough information.
Right.
Based on responses. I mean, if we had 100 responses, 100 more we got right now.
Yeah, no survey is perfect.
What is the anticipated number of responses do you think we get from this? In our population?
Based on the first Southside Park, we got 1,100, and that was the largest survey at that time, which one was that for? The Southside Park,
Oh, okay.
that was. It was 21, maybe 2021. So, and I think that generally now what we're seeing with the Tiger Team survey, there was almost 3,000 respondents, if I remember
I
correctly.
think leaving this open for 60 days and pushing it as hard as we intend to push it and making that QR code available, I think it would be reasonable. Should get up to 10,000.
Well, the longer you leave it open,
I think so.
the longer you leave it open, the more opportunity you set yourself up for opposition.
Now, we also talk about the idea that folks responding to this would have to have access to computers and use a QR code. Is there any thought or process that can be incorporated to allow hand?
We can make paper versions.
Paper
with City
versions,
Hall.
yeah.
Put that in the newsletter as well.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, we can also hand, I mean, it's not gonna help a lot, but you could hand them out to merchants downtown and ask them, well, would you, if you get opportunity, would you serve it? They don't have to, but point is, they can go back and say, look, if you got some, we'd like to collect them. So there's an opportunity to do a written format, but how far you go?
I just want to make sure that we give our everybody in the population an opportunity to approach this.
Right.
Maybe all of us can use QR codes. So,
Well, and that's the reason we went to a written newsletter twice a year.
right, okay, so I just wanted to put that into the.
That was a written one. Someone's gotta be Bob Cratchit, adding all that stuff up and figuring it out after the holidays.
Okay, I'll do that.
Somebody got on the pencil.
Yeah. All right, it was my idea, okay.
You get to crunch it.
No, I'm just saying someone has to be able to.
I used to,
And-
use my red
We
pen.
can even put like forms available at City Hall if,
We can, I wonder if we can put some in the library system too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, versus forms being available at City Hall, can we set something up there where they could come in here and fill one out? Or so that way.
Like a
when-
kiosk all the way.
Yeah, that way, you wouldn't have to worry about somebody going to pay for it. They're gonna come up here and get one, they can obviously sit there and fill it
Yeah,
out.
we could explore it.
It's gonna be the Central Clearinghouse,
Our PIO office.
does she know yet?
Yeah, good idea.
Good, I thought that would be more difficult than it was.
That was a good survey.
Good job.
I've got, maybe could the committee have an email, one final look at this, it gets finalized.
Got any opposition to that?
I think you can do that, but I would respond individually to Josh via telephone or something. I wouldn't get involved in a group discussion.
I want one final shot.
So what I'll do is I could make the corrections that we talked about and then push out another draft to everybody, and I'll specifically just state in there, respond individually back. So, yes.
Tracy, when's the next scheduled meeting?
You're gonna make it look exactly like this, only with the adjustments.
Correct.
Yeah, the next scheduled meeting is November 3rd, I think. We got enough time between now and then to get it out and
Yes, Nick.
that way you guys can vote on it and bless it.
On November 3rd.
Yeah, we jeopardize the schedule if we wait until then.
Gotta have it ready to go and if there's any little changes. And then they're percent.
Yeah, I think that's the way.
You'll get it out beforehand.
Okay, so get it done beforehand, and we'll meet on November 3rd, and we'll do the final.
Everything's above board.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is there any public comment with respect to the survey or the mechanism for distributing and harvesting surveys? Yes, speech.
With item 10. I just want to please understand that the original truthful design element of the park was to always have a river view. And that to bring in, semi-marina or whatever you want to call it, for dogs sitting there was not the original intent of the original design of the park. It was to secure and to save a river view for everybody that was in the park. And we know that because 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of mayors and city council people have always secured that view from the waterfront park. I just want to keep that in the back of your head.
I don't agree with you with that comment. I mean, I know that's how the beauty of democracy works, that everybody has their own opinion on things. But the very nature of the design, and I've said it earlier, was very costly to build a relieving platform. and to put big cleats on the waterfront. Right? And the relieving platform, even from the engineers who spoke to us, clearly was designed to keep deep water at the edge of the wall, not for a view, but for a vessel to moor up. So you can't say it was built for you. We could have built a park with a seawall and had a view. We didn't need a relieving platform.
I think the relieving platform is just to extend it further into the deeper water and get more power. That's
What was the
relieving
big,
platform
what was the big
is.
cleats for then?
I think the cleats is just for show. There's nothing. A relieving platform is not designed to hold back a cruise ship. A relieving platform is just a shell.
We're both speculating because we both weren't here. But
But for
the
50
reality,
years, I'm just saying, for 50 years, council members, mayors, there's always been security of having a river view.
and I was a council member for 8 of those years.
Forever.
And I don't totally agree with that comment. I believe in waterfront access to the water. So I'm a champion of the day dock, mooring field, increasing the boat ramp. I've been a champion of that entire time I've been here back in Beaufort, grew up here. So there's not everybody believes it should be a park and that's all you get to do is watch the water. I think people ought to be able to get in the water.
Okay.
Okay, but I have, if you ever been to Beaufort, North Carolina, I mean, it's solid boats. The whole front of that, and it's more marina, it's not really.
It's beautiful.
Well, you can't even see the river though, Mike. All right, that's all I got.
Any other public comments at this point? All right, before we adjourn, I'd just like to remind everybody that the agenda for the November 3rd meeting will include, in addition, final blessing of the survey, but also a discussion of the marina and compliance with the requirements of the land and conservation board. And I think that will be an opportunity to get into the specifics of the marina lease, even given the cloud over it. And Dave, would you mind circulating again your comments? We put together some time ago. And then I was gonna ask Scott if he would circulate the applicable LCWF regulations.
And waterfront conservation.
In advance of November
What
30th.
regulations are you talking
Well, whatever regulations that we have to be sure the, police complies with.
Are you talking about the property management agreement?
No,
So we've got the US code sections that are basically gonna say it's gotta be used for outdoor recreation. And then the LCWF has kind of their internal regulations. We get those out there.
the directive to this committee from council with respect to the marina is: 1, review the current lease agreement with Safe Harbor Marinas and its consistency with public access goals and federal land and water conservation fund LWCF obligations. 2, identify opportunities to enhance public benefit and recreational access through the marina and associated partnerships. 3, explore and recommend policies for aligning commercial and community interests within the marina. Within the marina area. So I thought that at the next meeting, we would begin it.
And we make sure that package is complete with all the stuff we know. I mean, example would be that 5-year report from land conservation from, what's the term, what's the SCPT? The National Park Service.
You had that on your emails.
Yeah, you have it, Josh has it, Ben has it, but that, and then you have a map of the park and the marina on your computer, but I like to see those in one document.
Okay.
So that everybody on the committee here could see, the back record. Because once you have the code, you understand what the code for, you understand we did borrow money, we did agree to these terms. And then we understand that there's some periodicity of inspection by that agency, which they've done, surprisingly. And I'd like to make sure everybody understands what the answer to that question is.
Any other business? Before we adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
There's a second. In favor?
Second.
Meeting.
don't have to do that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We're here since 19.
Bill Tracy, you want this one?
Well, I'm
figured they were all marked
gonna
up.
wait for the
Okay.
corrected version, so
If you have.
mine's is probably
You're
not,
right.
not what everybody thinks.
There's plenty of it. The house was better than anybody.
If I come in and do some landscaping, I'm going swing up the driveway, so that's like.
We do, how do you got going on? So, we do,
We keep them up.